Hello again, this is Alan Green. This is the third part of an ongoing series of interviews with Paul Jayson, the motorcycle broker. In our last interview, we looked at the growth in classic car valuations versus those of classic motorcycles. Today, we look at how exclusivity and rarity can impact on the value of assets such as art, classic cars and motorcycles, before we look at a selection of classic motorcycles that we believe offer dark horse investment potential over the next few years. Hello, Paul. It's good to speak with you again.
Hello, Alan. It's nice to see you again in these slightly freer times than last time.
Slightly freer times. Next time we'll be raising a glass to each other over the internet.
I hope so.
So, Paul, I think most would agree that in the world of collectibles, exclusivity and rarity generally equates to a premium valuation. And I'm going to bring up a slide that we looked at last time, which of course is the Coutts Passion Index, which compares fine wine, classic watches, coins and classic cars.
It's interesting. The classic cars are just miles ahead of everything.
They are, aren't they? It's incredible. But of course the Coutts Passion Index shows, of course, that classic cars have delivered the best returns since 2005. And of course, when we spoke last time, we established that while classic motorcycle valuations have recently started to gather pace, they still lag classic car valuations by some way. And I'm going to bring that slide up now to just show the point. So we can see here, of course, we've got comparisons with the Ferrari 250 GTO, Aston Martin DB4, the Alfa 8Cs and 6Cs versus motorcycles like the Brough Superior, Ducati 750 SS green frame, and then rare bikes like Carl Fogarty's 916 championship winning race bike.
Yeah.
So, of course, classic car valuations have delivered that growth. Classic motorcycles have only started to push higher really in the last 5 to 10 years. And of course, as collectors, we're always on the lookout for machines that have been overlooked by the wider market. But we've identified a selection of machines, and Paul and I have been working for the past few weeks on putting a list of machines together that, due to rarity and the difficulty of sourcing them in exceptional condition, we think have been overlooked by the market. So, Paul, firstly, I'm going to bring up a slide of this lovely machine, the Honda CB1100R. Can you tell us about this machine?
Well, it's very rare. That's the RB, first year of production, the rarest of them all. They made 1,050. These CB1100Rs are far rarer than RC30s, Honda's race machine with gear-driven cams. That now, really investment grade ones, they're around 40, 45,000. That's my own Honda CB1100RB. And Ron Haslam won the championship in 1981 when it came out. He won 7 of the 8 rounds, and it really put the bike on the map. That's my own personal one. It's got 161 kilometers from new. And they're really hard to find. It's totally unrestored, that bike. It's museum quality. And that's a real dark horse. We sold Ron's World Championship winning bike in 2018. And these bikes back then, they were only languishing around the sort of move from 8 to 11,000 for really nice ones, not for ones like this that are a museum grade. And now, you're looking at 25,000 since 2018 from 11,000. And that was purely because we just sort of did a short release that we'd sold Ron Haslam's World Championship winning bike. There's been no other publicity, but that had a massive effect on the market, which, although they've more than doubled in price, they're massively undervalued. They're still far cheaper. They're a fraction of the price of an RC30 and far rarer. And they were hand built, of course, by Honda. It's a superbly rare bike.
It's a lovely machine indeed. And yes, I remember watching Ron Haslam many times at Brands Hatch years ago. And in fact, my son went up and did a race course recently with his race school at Donington, which sadly closed down last year. So, but moving on from there, we're sticking with Honda, and we're looking now at Honda's little NC30, NC35. Can you tell us about these bikes, Paul? They've got quite a history.
Yeah, I used to own one. They're amazing. They're an incredible bike. I think a lot of the design in the RC30 did come from this. It came from the VF1000R and this. They had the 400s before the 750, which was the RC30. It's a gear-driven cam V4. I've had 150 mile an hour out of those with someone on the back. You don't need anything bigger. The technology is amazing. They rev out to 14,500 revs. And yet it's the size of a 250. It's super light, beautifully finished. And it sounds like a Formula One car when it comes on cam. They sound incredible. And a beautiful bit of engineering, unlike any other really since. It's a stunning piece of kit. And they can be picked up. It's very difficult finding ones that haven't been raced with original bodywork and in investment grade condition, or getting them into investment grade condition. You know, you can do it for around 10, 12,000, but that is, you know, when the 750 is sort of, like I said, 40, 45,000, then, you know, this bike offers great value and a lot of headroom for the future, and there's nothing can touch it.
Yeah, well, I too have one in the garage, Paul. It's only got 4,300 kilometers on the clock, but of course it is difficult to find all the original parts, and invariably, because when you own a machine in the day, you'd always want to personalize it and maybe put a different exhaust on, or just change things, maybe put a dark windscreen on instead of the plain one. So yeah, it's really hard to source those parts in original condition. But I agree with you about the engines. They have a Swiss watch quality about them. They sound fantastic when they're revved, and quite unlike the V4 motorcycles around today. Of course, Ducati and Aprilia are both, and Honda, of course, today are famous for producing these V4s, but these had a quality all of their own, I think.
They did. They set themselves head and shoulders above everyone else with this motorcycle. And actually, when you buy a 400, if you're not buying an RC30, then you really are buying something else in the 400 stakes, something else that's not as good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's our second dark horse. So we're moving now from Honda to Yamaha, and we're looking at the iconic and terrifying TZ700 and 750 two-stroke, of course, made famous by Kenny Roberts, who rode these bikes on the American flat track circuits without a front brake. There are some amazing video clips on YouTube that you can see Kenny doing his stuff. And also one was recently restored by retired racer and TV pundit Jamie Whittam. Paul, what can you tell us about the TZs?
They only made about 1,000 of the 750 and 700. So finding an original one, because most of them were raced, finding an original one with the original parts is nigh on. Well, it's really difficult, really, really hard. Now, Kenny Roberts won 3 world championships on this bike. So it's very clear that when one of Kenny's world championship winning machines comes to market and goes for millions, the price of TZ700s and 750s will rocket and go through the roof. It was 120 brake horsepower, with the power produced between about 9,000 revs and 11, and nothing below that. It just had this insane power band, and they were brutal to ride. And because Kenny was riding on the oval cinder tracks and was sliding the bikes around corners, it meant that he was very well suited to riding a bike like this, because the back was always breaking around away, and his whole style was to sort of spin the back wheel into corners and allow it to take care of itself while spinning, which meant that he was in the power band in the corners, which meant as he brought the bike upright, he just took off and nobody could catch him. So, you know, these motorcycles are very, very rare. They're really undervalued. They've gone up a lot. I mean, in the 80s, you could buy them for £200 at the race circuits. They were throwing them away. And by 2010, they were fetching about 20,000. Now you're looking 60, 70,000 really for a proper one with the original parts.
But as you say, if one of Kenny Roberts' original machines comes to market, it'll set the benchmark much higher. So potentially these bikes have got an awful long way to go and could start to move towards those sort of numbers.
Oh, they will. They'll go into the millions. There's no doubt. Exactly when, I don't know, but certainly in our lifetime they will. And they are they're a very rare, very beautiful, wonderfully engineered machine. And you know, it's a no-brainer. They are going to make a fortune.
It's just terrifying to think of that thing in the power band in a corner, isn't it? It's you know, something we mere mortals can't even contemplate.
No, I wouldn't like to get the power on like that in a corner. Even if I've been to Ron Haslam's school for a year, straight line, yeah, but not in the corner.
Straight line, not in the corner. Yeah,
it's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful piece of kit, and the sound, the smell, they're visceral. We sold Alan Millard's 4-cylinder Kawasaki 1000, and it sounds like a TZ750. It's got that, like, because it's the only 4-cylinder 2-stroke. They never made one for the road, and Alan built this thing, and it just takes you to the GP grids of the 1970s. Yeah. And you know, when you ride that thing, you realize, the TZs, they're really undervalued.
Very special bikes, very special indeed. So Paul, we're going to move on from these iconic machines now. We're going to look at a class where there really could be some bargains, and we're going to look at a series of vintage, trial, and enduro machines. And Paul, I know you're very knowledgeable on these, so we're going to start off with a couple of Montesas. Can you tell us about these bikes, Paul?
Yeah, wonderful machines. The one on the as you face your screen on the left-hand side is a Montesa Cota 348 Malcolm Rathmell replica, on which they won the championship. They hold a real dear place in my heart because I grew up in Mallorca in the 70s and went to school there, and everyone rode both these types of machines on the road along with Bultacos. And so they really do hold a place in my heart. And I rode them a lot in trials, and they're lovely. And the Capra, which is on the right of your screen as you look at it with the green number plate, they're brutal motocross machines that were fantastic. And they had a mad power band. And you know, these twin shock machines are a great way for fathers or mothers to spend their weekends with their kids, because twin shock trials and motocross isn't as dangerous as the modern type of stuff, which is just so extreme. And these machines are great to go and have a great weekend. And I'm certain that a lot of parents are going to end up getting into these, because they're not dangerous, they're a lot of fun, and it gives you time with your kids at the weekend doing something that's great fun, and it keeps you fit. I mean, people don't realize that riding off-road motorcycles is an extreme sport that keeps you really fit, whether it's trials or motocross. So it's a great way to spend time with the family, and people are hoiking them out the sheds. They've sort of tripled in value in the last 5 years. But, you know, they're all under £5,000 for investment grade pieces, and you can go and have a lot of fun with them.
So those are really affordable then. That's really good. That's a really good entry level classic. And as you say, you can have fun on the bike at the weekends. You won't lose money on your investment either. So a lot to like there. So Paul, can we say the same about the Bultacos we're now going to look at?
Very similar machines, but totally different machine. On the left of your screen in blue, you got the Persang Mark 11 370, which was a beast. It was really fast, but the Japanese bikes of that era just became faster and better. But these bikes had won championships. The same with the red Sherpa on the right-hand side, which is the trials bike. The Persang on the left is the motocross bike. And again, you know, they're beautiful bikes built in Spain. And everybody knew someone who had one. Everyone of our age kind of came into contact with these in the 1970s. A friend had one, a neighbor had one, and was sort of screaming around on them. So they really do, you know, for people our age, it's like jumpers for goalposts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Paul, valuations for the Bultacos, are they similar to Montesas?
Yeah, under 5,000. It varies on which model. They do have, they vary year to year. The pre-74s are worth more in some circles because you can enter them in pre-74 events. They have their own event. And some of them, like that blue Persang, is just so pretty that people pay really dear money, really dearly for them. And a Sherpa like that one in that condition with matching numbers and everything correct, it's just impossible to find. So, you know, they can go up to $5,000 like that, and especially the 6-speeds.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to come to a machine that I think for anyone that's a fan of Steve McQueen, they will have seen his film On Any Sunday, and that's of course the Husqvarna range of motorcycles. Can you tell us about this particular bike, Paul?
Yeah, they're really quite rare. They're very difficult to find. It's a motocross bike in investment grade condition because they just got ridden to destruction, like the Bultacos and the Montesas. So they're very, although with the Montesas and Bultacos, they made a lot of them, they're very hard to find in the right condition. These got ridden to destruction. They were quick. And Steve McQueen made them very famous. They used to ride in the desert race in America, which really raised their profile. And when On Any Sunday came out, Husqvarna sales went through the roof from it. And I believe also Hunter S. Thompson wrote a review of this race in the desert, which really raised its profile. And he talked about the motorcycles in it. And again, this raised the Husqvarna's profile. But finding a right one is really, really tough. They can sort of get towards the 10,000 mark. There's lots of headroom in these because they're very, very rare.
Okay, so if you can find a Bultaco like this in pretty well any condition, and of course restore it, then it's going to give you a good return on investment over the next few years.
Oh yeah, you know, you're looking at 5 to 10 years on these, but you'll get a great return.
Super. Okay. So Paul, finally we're coming to the competition version of the legendary Yamaha XT500, which itself has already risen massively in value as a classic, but this is a lot rarer, I believe, Paul. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, Yamaha, it was two Swedish guys, I think it was Horman and Lengthist, got a Husqvarna frame and stuffed an XT500 motor into it, and they pioneered it, and they didn't win anything, but they came very close. The following season, Yamaha decided to do it themselves and make their own project, and it was called HL in honor of Horman and Lengthist. And this is what they created. They did 2 versions of it, and they only made 500. Now, bear in mind, motocross bikes got ridden to destruction, so there's very, very few left. And these, you know, they're easily £10,000 now for the right one. And people are making replicas. You have to be careful you're not buying a replica, although a replica does have its own value. And the genuine bikes are really collectible, and they're also great fun. You can have a riot in a field on that bike, or even at a motocross circuit.
Super. Well, Paul, it's been great talking with you. So we've got a great selection of undervalued classic bikes that we've looked at here that offer great potential for tax-free returns in the coming years. Paul and I are going to come back with another interview shortly, but if you have any questions in the meantime, can you either please post them on the YouTube page or contact Paul through the Motorcycle Broker website. That's the Motorcycle Broker, one word.co.uk. So, Paul, just remains for me to say, Paul Jayson, the Motorcycle Broker, thank you very much for joining us again today.
It's been an absolute pleasure as ever, Alan. Thank you very much.